I'm Marty, and welcome to C++. So the goal of this C++ series is to take you all the way to advanced, but the way I'm going to teach it is simple C++ for beginners. I'm going to tell you what you actually will use when you're programming, because I see a ton of tutorials out there that they tell you all this super useful information, and then they don't actually tell you what you're going to actually use when you're programming. For example, do while loops, a completely useless programming feature in C++, and all it really does is bog your brain. So I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about C++ the best I can, because I'm only 15. So in this video, we're just going to be setting up C++ on Windows. I highly recommend, if you haven't, give Linux a try. What do you got to lose? Windows is scary. I highly recommend you do give Linux a try. It's a way better for programming and a whole ton of other things. But if you want to keep using Windows, you're more than welcome to as well. For the compiler, we're going to use the GCC/G++ compiler. You're more than welcome to use any compiler you'd like, but just so you can follow along the series, and we want to keep this the same on Windows and Linux as well. So we're going to use the same compiler. We're going to set up Sublime Text, so it's kind of similar to an IDE, so it'll look like this. We should have our folders here and whatnot. You're more than welcome to use IDEs if you want to. If you like using Visual Studio or CodeBlocks, feel free to use it. But CodeBlocks and Visual Studio are way slower, much more overhead than something like Sublime Text. Sublime Text is super fast and lightweight, so that's why I like it. And also, as an example of how you would set up an API, we're going to use SFML and just set that up with this system. So with that said, I'm actually running Linux right now because I don't use Windows a whole ton. And I don't actually have it connected to the internet, so that's why I'm going to download what I need here on Linux. And also, I'm only going to say this once so I don't end up repeating myself 1,000 times. Helpful stuff is in the description. So if you need a link over to the websites for the correct downloads, all that will be in the description. Alrighty, so first let's start by opening up a web browser. I like to use Firefox because it's fast, safe, and secure. We are going to want to go over to this page here. It took me quite a while to actually find this page. So to get to this page, a link is in the description. It's kind of difficult to find this if you're just going to search for it. Now you're going to want to click one of these downloads here. If you're on Windows 32-bit, you're probably going to want to click this one. If you're on 64-bit like I am, you're going to want to go with this one. This SEH, this is important because this does have to correspond with your API package. We can actually see here we have SEH and we have SJLJ. So I'm going to be going with this Win32, this one right here, this Win32-SEH. Another thing to point out here is make sure you're using 8.1.0. All the other versions I've found so far are seriously scripty-doo. If you use a different version, they will scripty-doo you so fast you won't even know what happened. I'm not joking. You use some of these versions aren't even finished. They don't have wildcard support. Some of these are completely missing DLLs that are necessary to run G++. It's a real mess, but 8.1.0 is stable, it's secure, it works, so use it. Don't go messing around with any of these other ones. 8.1.0 will work. So in my case, I'm going to download this one right here. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to say save file. Okay. Now, since I'm using the Win32-SEH one, I'm going to have to make sure when I download SFML, this API here, I use this MIGW SEH 64-bit. You have to make sure APIs correspond with your compiler. If they don't match exactly, you're probably going to get this error that goes something like undefined reference to imp_z and then some other bunch of stuff. If you get that error, it's probably because you have the wrong API. So I'm going to also download this one, and we're going to save that file. Aside from that, we're also going to need 7z, download 7zip. So this way we can actually extract our MinGW, because you can see that's a 7z file. And you can go with whichever one corresponds to your operating system. We're going to use a .exe download, and I will be using this one. And we're going to click save file. And this is the final thing we need, which a link will be in the description, to just a post I made on Pastebin. So this here is just the color scheme I like to use on Sublime Text. It looks kind of like this. I really like this color scheme. It's an adaptation of the 3024 Night. So this is completely optional. You don't have to use the color scheme I use. It's just I'm making it so you can if you want to. This way the syntax highlighting will be the exact same as I use. Scroll all the way to the bottom, and you're going to want to copy. We're copying bottom up because it's faster. So select this, click and drag, and go up. We're going to copy all these lines with the exception of the very first one, which is a blank line. So copy that, Control C, open up a text editor of your choice. I'm just going to use accessories, the Linux text editor, Control V to paste it in. If done right, you should end up with 501 lines of XML code. So Control Shift Save. I'm going to save this just to the desktop for now, and you can call it really whatever you want. I'm just going to go 204. The extension is important. It has to be a .tm capital T theme. So hit save. I'm just going to overwrite that. Replace yes. All right, so that's about all we're going to need. So I'm going to go boot over on my Windows drive a second here. Alrighty, so here I am on Windows with 6 files here. So the first one is Sublime Text. This is our color scheme. This is SFML 2.5.1. And then of course we have what we really want here, and that's MinGW64. Then we have 7Z here, which is just so we can unzip this 7Z file. And of course, this is Hexfigure. It's a Sublime package. You won't need this file because if you have internet access, you can just use the package install or the package control installer to install it. But I don't really use this Windows a lot, and as you can see, I have a lack of internet. So let's begin by installing G++. Open up this 7Z, hit install, and it will install super fast. Hit close. So we can right click this 7-zip, and we're gonna extract here. It's been a process getting this set up. This is probably like the 6th time I've tried to record this. Mainly because I was like, oh, okay, this worked this way on Linux. It should be fairly similar on Windows, but no, it's been a nightmare. Let me tell you. People, this is why we use Linux. But if you are using Windows, we do have a way. Once it's extracted, you should see this MinGW64 file folder on the desktop. You're going to want to move that into your local disk C. So drag and drop over to your local disk C. Before we get too far forward, go into the MinGW64 folder, go into bin, and you need to be sure you have some DLLs here, which we do. So we have a good build. If you don't have DLLs, you have a bad build. You will not be able to use G++ at all. Some builds don't ship with these DLLs, and that's pretty strange if you ask me. I don't really understand why they wouldn't. If you do not see these DLL files, then you're gonna have to try and get a different version. This is why I say go with 8.1.0 because it works. Let's go to control panel. I'll just search for it. Probably a little different if you are on Windows 10. You want to type name and see the name of this computer. Go advanced system settings, environment variables, and you go down one. You should see one called path. Click it to highlight it and then go edit. That'll open this dialog. From there, at the end, you're going to add one C:\MinGW 64. Or not 63, 64, /bin. Add a semicolon to the end of that. So hit OK. What this does is it adds everything that it is in the bin folder of MinGW64 to the path environment variable, which we need in order to call the G++ command. To test that this works, open up command prompt with cmd, hit enter, and inside command prompt, go G++, and it should say fatal error, no input files. Let's set up Sublime Text. Double click on the installer, next, and yep, we'll leave this checked, next. All right, so let's open up Sublime Text here. By default, I'll have this bland looking non-sugared cornflakes. That looks pretty bad. So I always like to go preferences, theme. The adaptive theme, in my opinion, looks better. And after that, let's go preferences, settings. We do need to disable a setting that will be enabled by default. If you want to zoom in and out, you can go control and then scroll. That'll let you zoom. Yeah, we got to reload this because every time we scroll out or scroll in, you'll notice that this number changes because that's our font size. A few things to disable. The first one is open quotes, hot_exit. And that needs to be false. Otherwise, it's going to do a fairly annoying glitch. The next one is quotes, remember_open_files. That needs to be false as well. This will disable it, and it'll also make it so that if we had a Sublime file open here like this, and we type something like this, and we closed it and we didn't save it, it won't remember. So if we open it, we can actually see it won't remember. But I think we're smart enough to remember to save our files before we close. Let's go to my PC, go to your C drive. You're gonna go users. In my case, it's gonna be Marty, whatever your username is. By default, you actually won't see this folder, so you're gonna have to go organize, folder, and search options, view. By default, it will be like this. So I'll show you what that looks like. As you can see, we don't have a folder called app data. We need to get in there. So let's go organize, folder and search options, and let's enable it. So apply, and we should see app data. Go in there, go into roaming and Sublime Text 3. Open up packages, user, and now we can just drag and drop this 3024-night custom. If we open up Sublime Text again, which is right here, go preferences, color scheme, we actually got 3024-night custom right here. All right, so that's set up. Next, let's make this full screen, Control Shift P, scroll down and install package control. Click that. In my case, as you'll see, we get an error message because I don't have internet. After package control installs, you only go Control Shift P, and then you'll be able to scroll down and you should be able to find something called package control : install package. You're going to click that. In my case, I don't have it because I don't have package control, but you'll click that. A dialog similar to this will open, and then in there you're going to search hex view. There should be something called hex viewer. You're going to click that. If done correctly, you should be able to go tools, packages, and you should see hex viewer. All right, let's also create a shortcut so we can toggle hex view, preferences, key bindings, and let's make this big. Copy one of these lines. I don't really want to copy or type it all out. Control V, and we're going to go with F8. F8 is available. The command shall be, or it is, hex underscore viewer. Make sure it's spelled right because it doesn't like spells. So Control save. If that is done correctly, you should be able to go tools, packages, hex viewer, and you should see F8 besides toggle hex view. Now we need to create a file hierarchy so we can sort out our C++ source files and our header files and all that. Right click, new folder. I like to call it dev. You can call it whatever you want. Dev stands for development, and let's go into development here. Right click, new folder. I'm going to name this one C++ tutorial. You can name it whatever you want. If you're working on a game, like, I don't know, you would probably name this Fortnite if you're working on a game called Fortnite or whatever. I actually don't play Fortnite. It seems like it's kind of an interesting game, but it would kind of get boring after a while if you ask me. So I'm going to name this C++ tutorial, and inside here we're going to create some new folders. Do copy folders, just hold Control, click, drag down, and we should have 4. Rename the first one to src. This is where we store C++ source files, so that's .c files or .cpp files. And let's rename this one to include. This is where we store our header files, so that would be .h files or .hpp files. So let's rename this one to, I like to name this one here resources. And then here you would store stuff like images, font files, and data files, or if you had models. So I'm just going to go in there, create a new folder, fonts, and if we had models, like if we had a 3D game, then we'd need a folder for that. All right, so let's go back a directory and let's rename this one to bin. This is where our source files live, and then it's going to output them to bin, and we'll want to create 2 folders in here. Debug, this is where we store our debug mode application. This one is release. This is where we store our release mode. The difference between release and debug is good for debugging, although it's slower, and then release, not good for debugging, but it's faster, better frames per second and stuff like that. So that's pretty much the file hierarchy. Let's open up Sublime Text again. Control N to create a new document, hashtag include, and I like to save my documents before, or my C++ files before I write them. This way it decorates the syntax and stuff like that, so it just kind of looks nice. I'm going to save it to desktop and dev C++ tutorial source. Now for the naming system, like some people do use capitalization for their source files, like they do something like this. It's really up to you, but the most common method is to go all lowercase for source files, and that's what I like to do. So save. We're just going to do a simple program that's going to print out hello world to the console. So iostream and hit enter. Int main, this is a main application, or the main entry point if you're speaking technically. Let's go std : cout, and let's print something to the console like hello world, my name is Marty, and let's end that with std : and l. So that ends the line. Hit enter, and let's go std : cn.get, which basically waits until you hit enter before exiting out of the program, which is what we need to do so we can see it. Control save, and to save a project, click project, because what we did right now is we just saved the file. But to save a project, you have to click project, and then you gotta go save project as. And we're gonna call this, let's go back a directory. I'm gonna call this the name of the folder here, which is C++ tutorial and .sublime -project. Hit save. Now let's go project, edit project. So we're gonna actually write a JSON file a second here, and then Sublime Text will interpret that JSON file, and it'll say the way we govern this project file. So hit enter, open quotes, folders. This will have a nice little folders thing along the side. Hit enter, open some square braces, and inside the square braces, curly braces, open quotes, path. So the first folder is going to be src, and these paths are relative to where this project file lives. In our case, that's right here. Another thing to note is you do need this Sublime workspace. If you delete it, that'll be fine. I'll just create another one. So it is necessary to have this. Add a comma, hit enter, open quotes, file, underscore include underscore pattern. So it's going to take a pattern, and this says what type of files do we include in this folder, and we're going to just go with everything that's a .cpp file, because that's pretty much all we need. Add a comment, hit enter, open quotes, follow underscore sim links. That will be true. I forget what that does. I read the documentation on this and I forgot what that does, but it kind of does need to be there. Copy this because I don't feel like repeating a bunch of lines, and let's add a comma here. So the second one will be include, and instead of .hcpp files, we're actually going to do two type of files. So open up some square braces, add a comma here, and instead of .cpp files, .hpp files, and everything that is a .h file. And that's all we're going to need for folders. Hit enter, open quotes, and folders is just kind of to make our job easier, to have nice little folders along the side. But build underscore systems is what really matters. This is actually where we tell our compiler how to compile our code. And I do believe you need a comma right here, if I remember correctly. So add a colon here, hit enter, open up some square braces, curly braces inside here, and you do have to name these. So we're going to name this first one to be C++ build for debug mode. If you actually add a comma here, not D, I don't know what I did there, but if you add a comma there, control save, you should actually see along the side. First of all, we have our folders here, and you can see we got main.cpp, and if we go tools, build system, we should have C++ build for debug. Another thing to mention is these build systems here will only apply to this project file. So we can't just open up Sublime Text or a different project file and then use these build systems. And that's really nice, because if we were doing a certain C++ project that used OpenGL, and we had another one that used SFML, it's just kind of nice to have individual project or build systems for each project. Right, so hit enter, open quotes, working underscore directory. And this will be, open quotes, add a $, and curly braces, file underscore path, and we're going to go back a directory. So to go back a directory is ... That goes back one folder. The reason we have this line in here is, by default, if we try to compile this through here, it's going to set our working directory to where this main.cpp lives. And that main.cpp file lives in source here. And that kind of messes up our file hierarchy. So we're going to go back a directory, which is here. So add a comma, we're going to pass a call to cmd, which is command prompt. And what this is going to do, it's going to silently bring up command prompt. We won't even see command prompt. And then it's going to run some commands through that compiler code with G++. And we're going to go with G++. So these, we could actually type these commands into the command prompt, which is right here, and it would work. So this kind of just makes it easier. We just have to hit F7 instead of typing it out in command prompt every time, which would be a real pain. So go G++ -c. -c says compile, don't link. We do linking separately, because if we're linking to an API library like SFML, we need to do linking separately. So -c says compile, don't link yet. What do we want to compile? Everything that is a .cpp file inside the source folder. Next, we can add some flags. The first one, std, we'll set that equal to C++ 14. This is, oh, what have I done? Yeah, okay. It doesn't really too much matter. We're just gonna go with C++ 14. This is pretty much just the version of IOStream, and 14 will be fine for what we're doing. Next one, -g, this says run it in debug mode, which will make output to the console more friendly, easier to debug. -w all, this says display all warnings to the console. If we created a variable that const char pointer, and that's, or constant character pointer, pretty much a string, just we don't have to use IOStream for it. And we're gonna call name equals Marty. So if we created a variable that didn't do anything, which this variable is not doing anything, when we add this -w all, it's gonna warn us. It's gonna say, hey, you got an unused variable here, maybe you want to take it out. So that's what -w all does. The next one is -m64. -m64 says run this in 64-bit mode, which is the x86_64 architecture. If you wanted, you could run this in 32-bit mode. I believe that would work, and then it would run for the x86 architecture. So we're just going to stick with 64-bit. Because we are on a 64-bit machine. Now, the cool thing here is we can actually do multiple commands. So open up two AND operators, or two ampersands, and this will say, all right, if this command works, then do another one. And this is G++, and now we're going to link. What this command will do is it'll actually output a whole bunch of .o files right here. And then we're going to want to stitch those all together with a linker. So that's why we go G++ and then *.o. So everything that's .o file will get linked together, and then -o, which -o means output this to a custom path or custom directory, which in our case is bin/debug/main. We're going to call it main. And so if this runs correctly, start bin/debug/game. 2 more lines, which is selector. Yep, make sure you do have a comma here or it won't work. Selector is going to be source.c++, add a comma, hit enter, open quotes, shell true here. So let's go control save. We actually would be able to run this. Tools, build system, hit select for build for debug, and F7 is the default shortcut to build, and we should actually be working. So it did compile, and it says it can't find bin debug game, and that is because it was main. I don't know why I called it game. It's supposed to be main there. So now if we go F7 again, it should work. Yep, and it says hello world, this is Marty. So perfect. So we got it working for debug. Now let's copy and paste, Control C, because release doesn't really differentiate too much, except we are gonna call it release. The only flags we actually changed is remove these debugging flags and replace it with a dash. Can make sure it's a O, not a 0. -03. -03 says super optimize this, so makes it a smaller file size and makes it run faster, so more frames per second, which is better. Also, when we link right here, here's a good spot. We need to add another one, -m Windows. So this will actually disable the console from showing up. The reason we do this is because for release mode, we're probably going to be releasing a GUI application. That's what most applications are these days. There's not a whole lot of console applications. And this just says do this for Windows and disable that console. And of course, we've got to rename this for release so we don't end up rewriting or writing over our debug mode ones. Release. Okay, so go Control Save, and let's go Tools, Build System. You should see Release now. If we hit F7, it'll say Finished, but won't even pop up anything. That's because it's disabling the console. If you wanted to enable the console, you just take out this line. But when you're only going to be actually doing release mode 1% of the time. When you write your program, you're going to be using debug mode to debug it. And when you're ready to ship your game or your application, then you do it in release mode, and which removes debugging and makes it faster. All right, so we are set up with C++ on Windows. Now, what if we have an API, which in our case, for an example, we're going to use SFML. So let's actually minimize and set up SFML a minute. So right click, extract all, and yep, we'll show the extracted files and hit extract. And that should open up this window. So in here, we've got SFML 2.5.1. Let's go to my PC, and we're going to want to copy it over, or actually just move it over to our C drive. As you can see, I've already got one in there. Yeah, we'll replace it. So in your C drive, open up SFML or your API, and you should see at least a bin folder, an include, and a lib folder. And that's what we need in order to run our API. All right, so let's go back to Sublime Text. If we actually did try to use SFML, hashtag include SFML/graphx.hpp. If we try this, it would give us some errors. We can actually try it. Let's Tools, go in debug mode and hit F7. As you can see, it doesn't really know where this exists. That's because we got to tell the compiler this file does exist. We'll just show you where it is. So go back to your build system. Right here, when we compile it, we go -i c://. Although it is tempting to go backslash. A backslash in every programming language is an escape character. So it baffles me why Windows went with a backslash as the directory operator. I really don't know what they're thinking there, because the rest of the world uses a / for directory operators. And then you get Windows, and Windows decides to be contrary for not really any good reasons. Yeah, boggle me mind. But just go with a /. It looks a little weird doing this on Windows, but it does work. So /SFML, make sure you do type out the name right. 2.4.1 or 5.1 /include. So this will give it access to the include folder. With your API, you want the include folder to be when you're compiling, which is this line. And then the second line, we also need to go -l to link over to the lib folder. So C:// SFML -2.5.1 / lib, and that'll link over to the library. And then you're also going to need some more flags. These really do depend on your API. If you're not sure, go to your API's website and they should tell you how to set up for each operating system. These are the ones for SFML anyway. So graphics, and then -L SFML -window -L SFML -system, and then these two here are optional. Audio, in case we were doing audio files, and network if we were dealing with a multiplayer game. So that's what it looked like. Control save, and if we still tried to run this, of course we'd have to do this in release mode, because we've only let this apply to release mode because we haven't done up here. Which to do it up there, you just pretty much just copy and paste. Control C, paste that one right there. Make sure you had a space, and of course we'd have to copy these. Control C, and we'd paste them right here where we do the linkage. So if we tried to run this, we'd end up with some DLL errors, and that's because with most libraries they ship with DLL. So let's open up our File Explorer, Windows Explorer, go to our C drive, and go to your API file, and you should see something called bin in there. There should be some DLLs, so Control C that, Control C. Let's go over to our project folder, and let's paste them in for bin, for debug, and for release as well. You do have to copy these DLLs over, or else your main application won't be able to work. Alright, so let's just try a quick SFML example. This will just basically render a texture to the screen. Let's take out this stdcn.get, otherwise it's gonna wait for some input before starting this while loop. So we can take out that line, Control save, tools, build system, and let's start with debug mode and hit F7. Alright, actually I have some buggy code, so I gotta replace that. Control save, and let's try that now. As you can see, we've got our window here, a very small texture being rendered to the screen. Perfect. And if we did this in tools, build system, if we did it in release mode, let's hit F7, it will actually just display just the GUI application and won't even display the console. So perfect, that's exactly what we need. Something to keep in mind, as you can see, oh, I think I turned on spell check with F6. Yeah, F6 turns on spell check. Something to keep in mind, as you can see, my program is dependent on this resources images, this PNG file right here, which I'll show you, exists in resources images right here. So my program is dependent on this file. So because of that, every time I update or add a new image in here that the program is dependent on, I also have to update it over in bin and for debug and release. I'd have to go Control C, paste it in here, yes, replace, and I'd have to do the same thing for release. And then this way in release, I could just double click on this main.exe and it would open up our GUI application. All right, so we've got C++ all set up. I'm just gonna undo, I'm gonna take out this because for our project, we don't really need to have SFML linked over. So we can take out those lines, take out those two lines there, and I'm gonna take out this line, boop, boop, and boop. Control save, and let's go back here. Of course, I'm gonna have to take out this code, backspace, take out this, and let's bring back our std:/cn.get in that line with a semicolon. Control save. So let's go F7 to run it, and that's in debug mode. So let's go tools, build system, go for, or that was release mode. So let's build it in debug. And of course, we got our window back up and running. If we hit enter, it'll close out. All right, thanks for watching. I'm actually recording this little segment here because the clip ran out right there. Recording error, it was Windows' fault. And I'm not going back to Windows to record the rest of it. So what was missing in this clip is basically I just looked over the project file. Since we don't have that clip, I'm just actually going to post it on Pastebin. A link will be in the description in case you missed of anything of the project file. All those resources and everything I used there will be links in the description in case you missed any of that. So you should be set up with this system. That was half an hour of video. If you take a look at, that's quite a bit of editing I've done. And I took a lot of drinks of water when I did this. I think I counted at least 8 drinks of water. Maybe Windows dehydrates me or something. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have a question, comment, concern, anything that went wrong in your setup, just let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to answer your question. If I don't get around to it, the community actually is very helpful on this channel, and there have been times where the community will actually answer other people's questions if I miss it. YouTube comments are pretty messed up right now. YouTube in general is messed up. I don't know what they're doing over there. They changed the login screen every single day. Guaranteed it's like different for me every single day. They're working on this new Studio Beta, which is actually slower and more sluggish than the old YouTube Studio, which I like better, by the way. They work on all these new features as the rest of the ship just kind of keeps sinking. We want real fixes, like demonetization. That's an issue going around. Copyright strikes is another huge issue. YouTube comments are pretty messed up. Sometimes I don't even get them. The spam filter's been acting really strange recently. Sometimes it marks some people as spam even if they're just asking technical questions. And then the more annoying thing is YouTube never tells me if I have new spam, because some of these spam comments are really just people who need to fix their problem. But YouTube is still a wonderful, great place. Please monetize me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next video. Next video, we're going to be studying up on Linux, and then the video after that, we're actually going to start learning C++. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next video.